Hi everyone, thank you for being here. So with this video, I'm going to talk to you about my postpartum journey thus far. If you didn't watch my birth story with Evelyn, you can go back and watch that or just listen to it. But just a recap, I endured about 30 hours of labor, had an epidural around 21 hours, pushed for only 15 minutes, and the way Evelyn came out wreaked some havoc on my vagina. So hopefully you're a female watching this. If you're a male, then, you know, deal with the terms I'm going to use. Vagina. Um, I sustained 3 different tears. A grade 2 perineal tear. So your perineum is the skin between your vagina and your anus. And then I sustained a tear a little bit higher up toward where my labia is. And then she tore me inside. I have a 4 centimeter cervical tear. And I didn't really know the extent of my injuries until my 2 week postpartum visit. So the practice that I go to, it's standard procedure to do a 2 week postpartum visit and a 6 week postpartum visit, which I'm grateful for. So after I delivered, I delivered Friday, December 9th in the morning, and my doctor had to repair all of my tears, especially the internal run was really extensive and made me bleed quite a bit. So you normally lose about 500 cc's for a vaginal delivery, and I lost 1,400. So almost 2 liters worth. Luckily, I didn't need a blood transfusion, but I did get 2 iron IV bags once I was in postpartum and on the mother and baby floor. And so Friday night, I couldn't sleep. I was in so much pain and I was bleeding so bad still. I did get up, I think, once to go to the bathroom, but I had to call a nurse to come in and help me because I was still in so much pain down there. She had to walk with me there. Finally, by the morning, I was able to get up and walk to the bathroom myself. And I took a shower, which was the most amazing thing ever. And one of the things that nobody tells you about postpartum is how scary it is to take a poop. So if you are pregnant or going to be postpartum soon, Colace will be your best friend. I took Colace. I'm still taking Colace, to be honest, because pooping is still scary. So I don't care, vaginal or C-section, bearing down and using those muscles, same muscles to push, and it freaking is scary. And it hurts. So yeah, take Colace to soften things up because that's what has helped me tremendously. So that first week postpartum, I mean, it's kind of like a blur now. But we put her bassinet on Matt's side of the bed because I couldn't even get up out of bed. I could lift her, but I needed assistance. I couldn't stand long enough to change her. I didn't change a diaper for 4 weeks, not gonna lie. My husband is amazing. My mother-in-law, I had so much help at the beginning. This was, right around Christmas time. So a lot of people, my mom luckily had a lot of time off work, and Matt took a lot of time off work so I could have help because honestly, I suffered a lot of injuries, but those first 4 weeks, I could not have done it without them. I couldn't take care of myself, let alone my baby. So regardless of your birth outcome, I would say those first 2 weeks postpartum, you really need your husband or your support partner or your mom or someone to stay with you because you're healing too and you have to take care of this baby. So to have somebody to just bring the baby to you when the baby needs to eat, assuming you're nursing, because I was nursing, then that is the best case scenario. So I didn't leave the house until 1 week postpartum when we had her first doctor's visit. So, left literally I changed. I went down the stairs, went to her appointment and came home. Now, I will tell you most days, so we have a 3-story house. We have a basement, main floor upstairs, and our bedroom's upstairs. I would pretty much wake up in the morning, shower, get dressed for the day, and go downstairs and be downstairs the whole day. I only climbed the stairs once more to go to bed at night. So once I was downstairs, I stay downstairs. And that was like 4 to 6 weeks of that. No joke. Just because I was so uncomfortable down there. I was in a lot of pain, actual pain the first 2 weeks. And because of I have extensive knowledge about birth injuries and what you can expect postpartum. So I'm very well aware of things that could go wrong, things that can happen, and different injuries that could happen, because of tearing and all of this stuff. So I'm very in tune with my body. Like, I know when something's off. So about a week postpartum, I felt like a lot of heaviness down there. Like shit was going to fall out of me. And I was texting with some friends that had babies, and they were like, yeah, it's a normal feeling. Like, it's terrible. It's awful. And from another one of my friends who has a close relationship with my OB, I got my OB's number because I'm like, I just need to know if this is normal, what I'm feeling. Like, this is crazy. So I spoke with my OB, and she said, listen, like, you had a very big baby and your tissues are very swollen down there. You just need to take it easy. And I really thought I was taking it easy. I will say that when my milk came in, it came in like a lot. So my supply at the beginning, like those first 2 to 3 weeks, was crazy. I was making so much milk. And, so I had a bit of an oversupply. I was making 20 ounces in addition to what I was feeding my daughter every day. So I was, taking the milk from my haka and putting it in bags, putting the bags in the freezer. And like, I did have help with this, but sometimes I did it by myself. So I got up to get the bags, sat back down, put the milk in the bags, like very basic, like home stuff, nothing crazy. And so I'm like, well, maybe that's even too much. Like, and I need someone to like bring the bags to me, bring the milk to the freezer. Like, it was like a milk processing company. It was crazy. It was just a lot to stay on top of that first like 4 weeks. Now I feel like my supplies like leveled off a little bit. So at 2 weeks postpartum, I had a visit. And now ever since 1 week, I started looking down there, right? So I could see what was going on. And I definitely saw tissues like bulging. I mean, I don't know, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at, but I did see like stuff bulging, and I was still bleeding quite a bit. So lots of bleeding. And so if you're postpartum, like these things that are going to be your lifesaver is definitely a peri bottle. Make some padsicles. Those were like amazing, or like ice packs for your vagina. Just take those huge overnight bags, put some witch hazel on it, some aloe, some lavender, like put them in the freezer, and then oh my God, like best, like those feel so good. And like, yeah, witch hazel pads, Tux pads, the peri, like those are lifesavers. Anyway, so at 2 weeks postpartum, I had a visit with a midwife in my practice, and I had only seen her like once prior to that. So hadn't really seen her a whole lot. And when I went in at 2 weeks postpartum, I was dealing with a lot of engorgement. Like, I was scared. I really didn't want to get mastitis. Like, so that scared me. So I was like, doing cold compress because I was in pain, but then hot compress to like, hot showers to like get some of the milk out. It was painful. And so she was just kind of giving me some tips. We were talking, breastfeeding stuff, which breastfeeding was going really well up until this point, other than like the oversupply. But, I was grateful that my supply was abundant for sure. And dealing with different issues with Evie feeding, but, it's all worked itself out. So 2 weeks postpartum, I did suffer some milk blisters, so those were really painful. So it's just like when you get like a clogged pore on your nipple and you have to like, again, like kind of put a warm compress on it and then have your baby feed and kind of suck it out. And it doesn't sound great and it's painful, but that did the job for me. So milk blisters were kind of like the worst like breastfeeding symptom I got, other than the engorgement and the oversupply. But so I really took it easy. Like, we had our best friends from Indiana come in town for New Year's weekend, and they wanted to go to, we went to brunch, and we thought, oh, maybe we'll go to the mall. to walk around, do some returns. But I was like, I just do not feel like I'm able to do that yet. Like, honestly, like 3 weeks postpartum, I still couldn't walk more than like 10 minutes. Like, just could not. Like, I couldn't even sit upright in a chair. There was so much pressure down there. I was so uncomfortable. It was terrible. So on New Year's Day, like New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, I was telling my mom, like, oh my God, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Like, I feel like maybe I won't have to wear diapers tomorrow. And my vagina's feeling better. And like, all right, like maybe this will improve. And then that night, so New Year's Day evening, at like 10 o'clock, I was feeding Evelyn in bed and just felt myself start bleeding, like gushing blood. And Matt was next to me, and I was like, Matt, I am gushing blood right now. And he was like, oh, maybe it's not that bad. Like, I'm like, no, like I am soaking the bed. Like I could feel it coming out of me. Like, this is frightening. And so I finished feeding her, like kind of like was like, hurry up, kid. So finished feeding her, handed her off to Matt, got out of the bed. The bed was soaked in my blood. And yes, the stain came out. But I was like, oh my God, screamed. Like, how do you not? And he's like, calm down, just breathe. Like, you're fine. Like, just breathe. And so I like held myself. And I ran to we have a loft, and screamed down to my mom, like, Mom, you need to come upstairs. Something's wrong. Because we live with my parents. And I go into the bathroom and take my pants down, and shit just starts pouring out of me. I catch something in my hand, and I'm like, and Matt comes in, and I'm like, oh my God, is this my uterus? Like what the fuck is coming out of me? And it was just like, I was pouring blood and screaming. Like, I don't know. It was so traumatic. I don't even remember, but I think I was just screaming like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And Matt was just like, calm down, breathe. And so I responded really well to him and was just like, you're right. Like, stay cool. Like, cause I know, like, it's not easy to stay calm in like very scary situations, but I knew screaming and like, freaking out was not going to make it better. So was just like, I'm like, Matt, and he's like, okay, we're probably going to have to call 911. Like, we're going to go to the hospital. Like, it's going to be fine, this and that. And then I think he went to go figure out something with the baby. Our friends obviously woke up because they heard me screaming. Luckily, I didn't wake up their 10-month-old who was sleeping. But my mom comes in and, I'm like, Mom, like, I don't want to die. She's like, honey, you're not going to die. You're going to be fine. And she's like, I think it's just blood clots, because she reached in the toilet and there was like chunks. And I'm like, Mom, but this is attached to something. Like the one I was holding in my hand, I'm not kidding, it was the size of my hand. And I was like, it's attached. Like, I don't want to pull it because I don't know what it's attached to. She's like, don't pull it. She's like, then just, hang on to it. And so we like changed me. She helped put me in a fresh diaper and I'm like, get sweatpants. And Matt grabbed like gray ones. And I'm like, can you grab black sweatpants? Like, I'm bleeding. So we grabbed these black sweatpants that he hates. He was probably hoping that I ruined them so that we would throw them away, but they were black. So anyways, so black sweatpants. My mom grabbed a towel to put under me and a garbage bag. I'm like literally holding it like literally like this, going down the stairs to the car because Matt was going to drive me. I'm like, Mom, what if I pass out in the car? She's like, do you feel like you're going to pass out? I'm like, well, no. She's like, well, then she's like, you're not going to pass out. Like, you're going to be fine. And I was like, Matt, grab my pump because I'm like, we're going to the hospital. I'm going to have to pump. And I'm like, oh my God, Abby hasn't taken a bottle. And luckily I had lots of milk in the fridge, and Mom's like, I got the baby, like she'll be fine. And I'm like, oh my God, she has to take a bottle. Like, she hasn't had a bottle yet. What if she doesn't take a bottle? I'm like freaking out, luckily I just fed her. So I'm like, okay, she's going to have to eat again at like 1 o'clock, 1:30, I'm like, oh my, so all of these things. So we get in the car and then we're going to the hospital where I delivered. So I called like the on-call doctor, told them I was heading in. She said she was going to call the OB on call, whatever. So we get to the ER and I'm like, I'm bleeding. I'm 3 weeks postpartum. I'm gushing blood. So they take me back right away to take my vitals and must have come to the conclusion that I wasn't dying. So they they sent me, out into the lobby again to wait. And I said to Matt, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm sitting here in my own blood. Like, is this not an emergency? So they made me wait, and it was probably 10 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. So finally they took me back and, made me drive. They didn't take I'm like, please don't take my pants off yet. Like, it felt so awful. Like, I can't even, like, this whole situation was probably worse than birth. Like, this was terrible. And so then they had me do an ultrasound. It was a very long ultrasound. As I'm just gushing blood here. And it's just me and this ultrasound tech, because it's like, by the time I get back to ultrasound, it's probably like 11:30, almost midnight. And so then I'm waiting there in ultrasound, waiting for someone from ER to come take me back to an ER room, and nobody was coming. And so I'm like, I am by myself here. Like, I could just totally code and nobody would know. Like, nobody's back here. And so I scream, like, is anybody there? And the ultrasound girl was like, I'm here. You're not by yourself. I'm like, okay, I really feel like I'm going to pass out. Like, can you take me back to emergency? So she did. She, like, rolled me back there, and Matt was like, what took so long? I'm like, I know, right? It was like 45-minute process. So he was probably like, is my wife alive? Like, what's happening? So I get into the room, and I'm, like, fading. Like I was like, babe, like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And, my husband is very calm in stressful situations, but I could see, like, his eyes were, like, getting really red and, like, teary. And I'm like, you're not crying, are you? He's like, no, I'm just, like, really tired. And I'm like, you need to stay strong because if I see him lose it, like, that's not good, because he's the strong one in these tense situations when I can't be, because it's happening to me. So finally the ER doc came back, and she put a speculum in me, which was very pleasant feeling at 3 weeks postpartum. So, I could just shudder. So painful. And starts pulling the clots out of me, as many as she could see, but she couldn't stop the bleeding. So she packed my vagina full of gauze and was like, I'm going to call the OB that's on call. I was like, okay, I already thought someone called her, but cool. So she called the OB on call. It was not the OB that delivered me, unfortunately. I wish she would have come in. I'll explain what she was. She's like, you should have called me. But anyways, so at this point, I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, okay, it's 12:30. I'm like, I need to pump. I'm like, cause Evelyn's going to be eating soon, and I need to keep up with her. And, so I did like the little button, had a nurse come in. I'm like, can I incline a little bit so that I can pump? Because I can't pump laying down. It's going to pour all over me. And so he's like, yeah, we'll sit you up a little bit. So they sat me up, and I was just doing one boob at a time. I don't know why. I should have just done both, but I was doing my left boob, and another nurse came in a couple minutes later. I was only going to pump for like 8 minutes, because I get like 3 or 4 ounces out of 8 minutes or something like that. Ridiculous. So one of the nurses came back and took my blood pressure again, and like freaked out. And come to find out, my blood pressure was like 80/40. It was ridiculous. And I spiked a fever. I had like 104 fever. It was not good. So they're like, why did you incline? I'm like, I'm pumping. I can't pump laying down. So they took my pump off, laid me back down. And then they were like, you need to go. Like, we need to take you back. And so they took me back. Everybody that came in for this emergency situation was on call. The anesthesiologist, the nurses, my OB, all of that. So the OB was kind of explaining what happened. They think there was tissue and placenta remnants left in my uterus from birth, which is what caused this. So I needed to be put under general anesthesia and all that good stuff. And I'm like, well, I hope my right boob doesn't explode during, the surgery. So if it does, then fix that too while you're there. But anyways, so they took me back around 1 o'clock in the morning. It was finally maybe like 2 once I was done, 2 or 3. I'm not quite sure once I woke up. But I literally, the first thing I said to Matt was, give me my pump, because my right boob was going to explode. So I pumped again right there. They transferred us to the recovery floor. I think it was the same floor as we were on postpartum. So like the mother and baby floor. And I don't really think I slept much. I think Matt did, but I didn't. I was pretty traumatized by everything that had just happened and like, why did this happen? Like, how did this get missed? Basically, like, I could have died and bled out. Come to find out, I did get a blood transfusion because I lost so much blood. And just like, calling my mom. I FaceTimed my mom a couple times to see how the baby was doing. Luckily, she took a bottle like a champ. So I was so grateful for that because I missed 4 feedings. I was gone for 16 hours. So first time moms, if you're listening to this, or just moms in general, and you have to leave your 3-week baby for that long, it was horrible. Like that was awful. And that's part of the reason why I was so like traumatized and so sad, like just all of those things. So finally, the doctor who did my DNC came in around noon. We were like dying. I was like, I just want to go home. Our friends came to visit. They decided to stay an extra day, helping my mom out with the baby and just being there for us. Like they're the best of friends ever. And they're not on social media, but the Sheets family, they're amazing people, and they were there for us and for Evelyn. So I thank you guys so much because you guys are just like family to us. So anyways, the doctor finally comes in around noon to talk to me, and I was like, can you just explain like what happened and like how this happened to me? And basically she said when there's tissue and placenta remnants left in the uterus, your body still thinks that it's pregnant. So your uterus contracts and makes more blood, and there's nowhere for the blood to go but clot. And then what happens is your cervix starts to dilate and you start passing the clots, which is what happened to you Sunday night. Like your cervix started to dilate and started to basically push the blood clots out. And she said, I was like, does this happen? Is this normal? And she's like, I've seen this happen several times, but it is rare. So it's not a thing that happens all the time. And so I'm thinking, like, what could have I done differently? Like, was it something that happened at birth? Like, was this something that was missed? Like, there were still, like, unknown questions. And, I have endometriosis, or I had endometriosis. So I'm like, maybe I'm predisposed to something like this, like extra tissue left. Like, I don't know. It's just like, I'm grateful that I'm alive and that everything worked out. It could have been a lot worse. That's for sure. But it just something very scary. I hope I don't know anybody other than one person that has gone through this. So this is why I'm sharing this story, because if this starts happening to you, like maybe it gives you a little peace of mind on what could be going on, and that like you're gonna be okay. Just go seek emergency help ASAP. I'm grateful I'm grateful I'm alive. Honestly, like I could have bled out. I could have gone septic, like all of these things. So, yeah, I'm just grateful. So that was 3 weeks postpartum. And after that, I started feeling so much better. Like, so much better. I could actually like start sitting in a chair. I could actually start moving around and changing my baby. And trust me, I wasn't like flying up and down the stairs, but I was starting to get like to the point where I could take care of myself and my baby, and that meant a lot. And so at my 6-week checkup, so that was 3 weeks later, I saw the OB that delivered me, and it's her practice, so she's the head of everything. And I did fill her in on what happened because I have her personal number, so I did fill her in on what happened, and she didn't respond, but she had told me that at my 2-week visit, I should have gotten an internal or an ultrasound, and that I didn't. So the midwife that I saw at my 2-week visit kind of messed up. And that was a miss on their part, and the whole thing could have been avoided. So that's very frustrating. And again, I'm grateful that I am okay and that I am here. And hopefully this midwife learned her lesson. I won't be seeing her again. But yeah, so scary to think that that sort of a thing was a miss. And now that I know that this is a thing, I'm probably going to request an ultrasound immediately after I give birth the next time so they can check to see. Because yeah, not something that I would like to experience again, that's for sure. And so I did not get cleared for like full activity at my 6-week visit, meaning I couldn't do anything internal, aka have sex again. And which I don't feel ready even now at 8 weeks postpartum, to be honest. She's like, you're still healing in there. Your tissues are still very swollen. I mean, I had just had the DNC 3 weeks prior to seeing her. So it's like I had to like reset the clock on like my healing, which totally makes sense. And so she gave me some cream to apply and to stick up there to help with the healing process, because it's my cervical tear. The internal tear is not fully healed. So she wanted to see me in 6 more weeks. So I have another appointment at the beginning of March. But I did start pelvic floor physical therapy last week. So between 6 and 7 weeks, we were out of town. We went to the Dells for my dad's 70th, and then we went to Eagle River to spend the week with my in-laws. But again, we were just chilling, hanging out at their house, like not doing much. But I did start exercising again, just very light body weight, rehab type stuff, like nothing, like literally nothing crazy at all, just like very minimal, lots of breath work, lots of pelvic floor activation. Luckily my core, it has healed very nicely. I don't have like any like diastasis recti going on or anything, which is like abdominal separation. My my linea alba, the connective tissue in between your abs, like feels really strong. And I obviously still have like extra skin and everything there, but I mean, I gained 50 pounds and I'm 8 weeks postpartum. I still have 20 pounds to lose. I've only lost 30 so far, but not really worried about that because my vagina still does not feel normal. Even though I can't do anything internal yet, I had my pelvic floor PT look down there. I'm like, can you just like look down there for me and like let me know what's going on? So she did say like my tissues are still very swollen and need to heal, and that I have like a grade 1 bladder prolapse, and like my rectum is bulging a little bit, which I definitely feel. Like it still feels like I have a tampon falling out down there, and like when I walk, like I could feel like the tissues rubbing. Like it's really uncomfortable. And like I had like a meltdown about it yesterday, like just so upset. Like I'm just like, am I gonna get back to running and doing all the things that I love? And my pelvic floor PT did say like you still have a lot of healing to do. PT is going to help tremendously. She's like, you can walk, you can do all the workouts that you're doing thus far. Lifting heavy and running will come with time, but she's like, I really need to do an internal assessment before you do anything high impact, which I totally like get and respect. I'm not going to try to like go for a run right now because I feel like my uterus would fall out. Seriously. So at this point, I'm 9 weeks postpartum tomorrow. And at this point, I've just been going for walks. Like I made it almost 2 miles the other day, and I was like, oh my God, yesterday I made it almost 2 miles, but it's very slow. Like it's a very slow walk. Like it's taking me 30 minutes to a mile, like literally slower than when I was pregnant and 50 pounds heavier or 30 pounds heavier than I am now. Anyways, very light body weight stuff, incorporating some core stuff, like, and I went through a lot of trauma, like I get that, but like, please know this. If you're pregnant or postpartum and you get that 6 week, like all clear, like, yeah, don't just go back to what you were doing before. Like if you were doing to CrossFit, like don't just go back to CrossFit or don't just go back to Orange Theory or whatever you were doing before. Like after that 6 week checkup, you should really take the next 8 weeks to do like a formal rehab program. And work with someone, like work with a pelvic floor physical therapist, work with a coach, like a postpartum coach. Like I have a couple of pregnancy and postpartum certifications. Like work with someone who works with this population. We are out there, trust me. I have a Fit for Birth certification and pregnancy and postpartum athleticism certification. So again, it is so important that you reconnect your core to your pelvic floor and like get your brain body connection back again, because shit just goes crazy during pregnancy. And you grow this baby and you put all this pressure on your pelvic floor, your abs stretch to, your stomach stretches to the size of a watermelon. So like that takes rehab. Like, I don't care if you had a perfect vaginal birth and a perfect C-section and whatever, like your body still needs to rehab. Like, honestly, it's good for you long term. Now, for me, because I suffered so many extensive injuries via birth, like my recovery is going to be even longer. Thus, why at 9 weeks postpartum, I'm still doing like very light workouts, just walking. And I know the high impact and the running and everything will come, but like it's going to take time. Like my vagina still feels like I had a baby. Like, and it's going to take time to rehab. And I know that. So I'm very grateful for our modern medicine and pelvic floor physical therapy, that it's like a thing and people know about it. But I'm not going to be shy talking about my postpartum, injuries and my prolapse situation, because I feel very alone right now. Like I feel like I don't know anybody who has dealt with this. Like none of my friends, none of my family members, nobody's talked about it. And, women think that like, oh, it's embarrassing. Oh, it's shameful, but I'm not embarrassed or ashamed that my vagina is a little bit broken right now. I mean, I had a 9-pound baby come barreling out the birth canal and frickin' her arm flings out of my vagina like, I don't know, like she's playing with like mariachi sticks or something like that. And she did a number on my frickin' vagina and my pelvic floor. And I'm not embarrassed about that. I need to rehab that, just like I rehabbed 2 torn ACLs. So I know I'm going to come back from this. I know I'm going to get back to all of the things that I love to do. And I have to keep this mindset because, I could just have a little pity party like I did yesterday and just cry and, go, why do I have to go through all of this and this and that? But it's just, that doesn't serve me. What serves me is to be positive and to know that sharing my story is going to probably help somebody else. If I help one other person with my story, then I would consider myself like, then I did my job. And I have an amazing baby. Like, honestly, like, knock on wood, like, she's 9 weeks old tomorrow, and she's been sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night for the last, like, week and a half. And before that, it was, like, 5 to 6 hour stretches. Like, she's not fussy. Like, she is a freaking... She's an amazing baby. And Matt is like, it's because she's chemically well balanced. Because you worked out and took such good care of yourself during your pregnancy. And I'm like, thanks, babe. I appreciate that. But maybe there is something to be said of that, because maybe, and honestly, like her shoulder definition is ridiculous. Like she puts me to shame. So yeah, this was a little bit longer than my pregnancy, than my birth story. But as you can tell, I've been through kind of a shitstorm postpartum, but the setback is going to make for a really good comeback. So I am eager to share my journey and this process of healing my vagina and getting back to all of the things that I love to do. But for now, I'm just going to focus on rebuilding a really strong foundation. I'm not worried about the weight. It's going to come off in time. It's, it is what it is. I grew a big ass baby. She's beautiful. She's so beautiful. Oh my God. And it's worth it. It's all worth it because God, I just love her so much. I could cry. But thank you for listening. And if you have anything to say, just comment below. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. And thank you so much for following along my journey and for all of your support.